Growing up, I had the story of my birth many, many, many times. Sometimes, my mother would make me stand up in a room full of family and friends to tell the story. You see, my mother, when she was pregnant with me, had anemia. As a result, I was born too early. At 32 weeks, weighing barely 2 pounds, anemic myself, I was given 72 hours to live. No doctor was willing to waste an incubator on a dying baby. So my mother paid double. She paid for the incubator and bribed the doctor to give me a fighting chance. She never let me forget it. But every time I heard this story, it spoke to me. It said, Mercy, you have to make your life count. You have to make your mama proud. You have to have an impact in this life. In Africa, to make your mama proud, to have an impact, you have a choice of 3 careers. You can either be a doctor, an architect, or an engineer. Thankfully, I had grades for all 3. So I thought, well, I'll go to medical school and make my mama proud. Well, nobody told me I wasn't cut out to be a doctor. You see, when I watched sick children, they made me sick. When they threw up, I threw up. So medical school sent me to my second choice, architecture. Apparently, to be an architect, you must know how to draw. I mean fine art. I had no clue what fine art was. I couldn't draw to save my life. So a very kind and loving professor sat me down, listened to my story, and said to me, move to nutrition. It will serve you well. I didn't believe him. In that moment, he crushed my world. He broke my heart. My dream of making my mama proud was dead. What was nutrition? To me, it wasn't prestigious, but I needed the education. So I went on to get a PhD in nutrition. I took up a job in Rwanda, a nutrition research project. In this study, my job was to find out if eating a bean with more iron would resolve anemia in women. I had 200 girls, university students, aged 18 to 27. I had 135 days to get the evidence. It wasn't easy. I mean, this was a double-blind study. I had 2 types of beans, a high iron bean and a low iron bean, but they both looked exactly the same. Half my girls were taking the high iron bean and half the low iron bean, but none of us knew which group was assigned to which bean, so we couldn't cheat. We had to let the science work. This study had failed twice before. This was the beginning of my career as a scientist. It was a Hail Mary that I really needed to work. I'm not very patient, but I had to wait 135 days. Halfway into the study, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a beautiful evening. The sun was setting, we were setting up for dinner, and the girls were walking into the dining hall. From the side of my eye, I saw her. This young girl. She was usually very bubbly, but today she looked unhappy, and she was whispering to her friends. I wanted in on this conversation, so I walked closer to their table to eavesdrop. She was complaining to her friends about her monthly period, that it was regular, consistent, and on time. As a woman, I could empathize. She was moving from having irregular monthly periods to dealing with regularly the inconvenience, the distress, the cost of a monthly period. You see, when a woman has anemia, her brain tells her body, we don't have enough iron. You have to not waste any iron. So her periods become irregular. But when a woman has anemia and it is resolved, then her brain tells her body to resume the monthly period. In that moment, I got it. It was working. This was huge for my girls, for the world, for me. In Rwanda, we had found a solution for anemia. With this little bean, I had managed to stop the very thing that almost cost me my life. So well before we analyzed the data, published the paper, I had found out that this worked. It was a beautiful feeling. Finally, I'd made an impact. Finally, I could make my mama proud. Finally, I count.